microphones real? Yes, they are. Is Jesus real? I mean, really real? Or did a group of people just get together someday and decide to write up to try to do the biggest con trick of all times? And did they write down some stories quite alike, but not too alike? And are they sitting on some fat cloud somewhere laughing themselves sick? I could believe that. But what would I do with all those people who talk to me in gentleness? Those who have Christ twinkling in their eyes. If he didn't exist, how did he get inside so many people? Over and over, people drop their lives and walk in Christ. Spend a day looking for Christ living in others. You will find him in the most unlikely people and places. If Jesus isn't real, then you're going to have to exterminate thousands of people who live in him. I love it when people argue there is no love, and then they stand stupid before an act of love. I love it when people say there is no mercy, and then whistle and glance the other way when an act of mercy looms in front of them. I love it when people say there is no Christ, and then frown and mumble at the life that lives in Christ, the life that lives in Jesus who is stalking the world. I wonder what people see living in me.
But who do you say I am?
And Peter answered him, saying, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God.
But who do you say that I am? For truly I say to you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, Move hence to yonder place, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you.
I've never seen a Christian move a mountain through faith. I've never seen one so much as bend a blade of grass through faith. I've never seen such a thing.
I've heard people talk about faith. I've heard people yearn for faith. I've seen people with such a mustard seed on a chain worn on their wrist, around their necks.
The mustard seed, encased in a plastic ball, was so very, very tiny. God have mercy on us. God have mercy on us.
He had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. Once, I was in a car in a foreign country, and we were driving down a country road, and we came upon a flock of sheep. The shepherd moved to the side of the road, and all of the sheep followed him, regardless of whether they had to cross in front of the moving car to do so. These stupid sheep followed their shepherd without any thought at all. I've since heard that this is always true, that sheep are stupid and easily led. And they will follow their shepherd wherever he leads, regardless of whether it is the sensible thing to do, even if it will kill them. Since then, I've been very uncomfortable with the many New Testament references to the Good Shepherd, and the fact that we are to follow God like sheep. I have lived in an age that says we must rely upon ourselves. I've been thoroughly trained and educated to take care of myself. I believe in a person taking full responsibility, walking without apology or phony humility. As I've been trained to meet problems head-on, eye to eye, it is very difficult for me to bow my head. It is very hard for me to get on my knees. At times I've gotten on my knees in prayer, but I wonder if my heart has ever really gotten on its knees. He asks a great deal. It is hard, even when you want to. Be merciful to me, O God. Be merciful to me, for in thee my soul takes refuge.
They were mistaken.
Mary thought she knew her son. Mary loved and yearned for him. She followed and pleaded with him to come home. Mary wanted to protect him. Mary was mistaken.
Peter thought he loved him most.
Peter felt he knew him truly.
Peter thought he would never fail his master. Peter thought he would be faithful to him no matter what happened. Peter was mistaken.
Judas thought he should organize. Judas thought he should live up to his view of the ancient promise and hope, or give it all up. Judas began to be disappointed, and he began to distrust. Judas was mistaken.
Thomas thought they were all very gullible. Thomas loved and revered him, and Thomas missed
fellowship and prayerful perspective, we are now ready to box and label this man from Galilee. He is ready for the completed file. We are mistaken. And he answering said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind.
How much money do I have to give to the church to be a good Christian?
There was one I loved, and it came time to buy a gift. What I wanted to give cost too much and was out of the question. But I saved and went without, and I bought the gift, and I was deeply happy.
How much time do I have to give to the church to be a good Christian?
There was one I loved, and I dreaded our separations, and we planned and devised ways to find time to be together, to talk together, to work together, to laugh together. And when we were together, I lost track of time, and I was deeply happy.
How much of my behavior do I have to have regulated by God in order to be a good Christian?
There was one I loved, and I wanted his respect. I was careful with my language, careful in my work. I lived as truly as I could so that he would nod his head in approval. With him or away from him, I acted in a way I thought he would admire. And as I strove thus to be more than myself, I was deeply happy.
God forgive us.
Once, a long time ago, God spoke to a man, and the ground around the place where God was speaking was so very holy that God asked the man to take off his shoes in order just to stand there.
Once, when God's house was new, only certain very special and very holy people were allowed into its center, where God himself lived, for it was so holy.
Once, when they were carrying God's house from one place to another, one of the holiest parts, the part that held God's very words, slipped, and a man, he only wanted to help, reached out to keep it from falling, and God struck him dead, for it was so very holy.
And this God, from time to time, a long time ago, talked right out to certain holy people, like Abraham, and Moses, and David, and Esther.
Today, we have crosses for earrings, and crosses for necklaces, and wallet-sized pictures of Jesus in living color.
We have little saints for our cars, and we sometimes start important football games and baseball games with little prayers.
And the God, the holy God, who spoke to a certain few a long time ago, talks right out to no one anymore, as far as I know.
God have mercy on us.
I stand before the cross and wonder.
I stand before the cross and fear.
I kneel before the cross and weep.
I pray before the cross and rejoice.
To know the cross is to know Christ.
To feel the cross is to feel Christ.
To gaze at the cross is to gaze at Christ.
To carry the cross is to be a Christian, and not until then. God forgive us.
Moses said, "Oh, come on now, be sensible. Not me. I'm a terrible speaker. They'd never listen to me."
And God said, oh, for crying out loud. Okay, I'll use your brother to help with the speaking.
And Moses led God's people out of disintegration.
Jonah said, oh, come on now, be sensible. Not me, I'm not your type.
And after a rather unexpected vacation in a fish, just thinking things over, he talked to God's people and led them God's way.
And Zacharias said, oh, come on now, be sensible. Not me. My wife and I are too old to have any kids.
And God said, oh, shut up.
And he did shut up for 9 months. And John was born, and the way for the Christ opened up.
And I heard a child say, I can't serve God, I'm too young.
And I heard a voice say, I can't serve God. I'm not good enough.
And I heard a woman say, I can't serve God. I'm not skilled enough.
I wonder if God gets any new problems.
I knelt and said, but I am one, only one.
And the world is so large, and the evil is so strong. There are so few who care. There are so few who sense.
But I am one, only one.
The machines of organization roll on, crushing the individual into part of the mass. The hopelessness of the world-wrought minds spreads and smothers the hope of the lonely individual.
But I am one, only one.
Entire cities have been destroyed. Entire nations have reaped their seed of distrust and lie writhing in their death throes.
But I am one, only one.
While I eat my fill, hundreds die in hunger. While I close my door in careless safety, hundreds watch their doors in feared resignation.
But I am one, only one.
The powers of mind and thought and measurement reduce the world to calculated probabilities.
But I am one, only one.
And even that one walks in fear and stumbling discontent and lack of strength.
And I am so one, only one.
And he said, stand up. I choose you.
And I stood up, and the earth trembled.
And that is the beginning to which there is no end.
Except in God.
Once, friends seemed far away, and those who were near seemed unfeeling and uncaring. The job to which I was committed seemed to set off my weakness in sharp relief. The values which so recently had seemed dazzling now appeared upon closer inspection tarnished and meaningless. The world in which I lived lay deep in its own mire of deceit. My eyes swept life as I knew it in bottomless disappointment. And so I rejected it. I decided to turn my back on this futile world and try to find life's meaning elsewhere. I stepped outside the world's fence and vowed to be blind to it for as long as I would live. I went looking for God. I wandered and searched. I prayed and meditated. Unencumbered with the pools and pains of my old world, I felt light and free. I searched for my God. I grew apprehensive and doubt seeped in because I couldn't find him. Then, I glanced over the fence I had so firmly rejected. I saw again the futile, faithless world. And there, deep in the midst of the pain, stood God, talking, listening, and holding a dying child in his arms. He looked at me. I saw that to find him, to get close to him, I would have to re-enter the world I found so worthless. I'd have to make my way through all that I had rejected if I were to meet my God. I felt deep anguish as I stood by the fence. His eyes were upon me, and he saw my heavy heart. And his eyes, they never left me.
Once a woman said,
If I had some extra money, I'd give it to God. But I have just enough to support myself and my family.
and the same woman said,
If I had some extra time, I'd give it to God. But every minute is taken up with my job, my family, my clubs, and what have you, every single minute.
and the same woman said,
If I had a talent, I'd give it to God. But I have no lovely voice. I have no special skills. I've never been able to lead a group. I can't think cleverly or quickly the way I would like to.
and God was touched. And even though it was unlike him, God gave the woman money, time, and a glorious talent. And then God waited, and waited, and waited. And then after a while, God shrugged his shoulders and took all those things right back from the woman. The money, the time, and the glorious talent. After a while, the woman sighed and said,
If only I had some of that money back, I'd give it to God. If only I had some of that time back, I'd give it to God. If If only I could rediscover that glorious talent, I'd give it to God.
And God said, "Oh, shut up." And the woman went and told some of her friends.
You know, I'm not so sure that I